I mean, you can always bring up such things in the course of this discussion. We have already a list of requirements on the wiki page in our app interaction section, where we have collected use cases and requirements that we would like to align and that we would like to discuss. And I would like to start with this list. And yeah, please interrupt if you would like to add something else. And our first topic on this list is the wildcards need to be standardized across all apps. And currently that's not the case. So the requirement is mentioned in this first box on the left side. I'm not sure whether I want to read that to you. Maybe you can have a look. We have different truncations across the different apps, and it would be really good to say, okay, we use these for all searches across all apps. And there are some already proposed from further app interaction discussions, and those are question mark, and that would then match any single character or asterisk, which can match 0 or more characters, including an empty one. And now I would like to hear your thoughts on that. Would that be okay? Or do you have any specific reasons why you would pick something else? Thumbs up. Anyone who I'm the official one.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, if you're using the question, can you use that within a character string? So if you're looking for a woman belonging, you can use, the question mark for the second to last character in the word. Or is it just, whatever?
How would you want it to be?
I think that's what you just described as what I would assume. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. What Maura described with being able to use it within a string is what I would assume, because that's where it's very useful. Does anyone disagree?
I don't necessarily disagree with that statement, if that would be useful. But what I'm wondering is, it might be what our story is here, but the original says truncation mark, or it says wildcards and listens truncation mark need to be standardized across all apps. And then what we're talking about is both of those things. I wonder what Lady is splitting out, because I think that truncation and wildcards in the middle of words is going to be different. That's different implementation. I would guess that most all apps probably support some kind of truncation right now. I'd be surprised if many outside inventory Elasticsearch support a wildcard character in the middle of the word. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but certainly I know the apps I'm responsible for the truncation, but not wildcard.
Okay.
So maybe truncation is based on evidence. We're getting reports from our remote attendees that we've got echoing, so we might need to mess around with which mic we're using here. And we have to use this one. Chris,
Let's tell them whether this one is on, maybe. I have a we want to. Well, no, you're not in audio, so that's not.
No,
I was trying to think that. I'm not sure whether this one is on, and that's why we have some.
I would also see your list for the linking.
Yeah.
I will now try to mute this one and we can press that one.
No, I just can't resolve.
Okay.
See if the echo is better.
Is that better now? I think we have additional. No, not better. What's this? Is it okay now?
No,
No.
no. Oh, maybe that one up and
I tried one more time. Please give us feedback. Yes. Okay. Everyone can see the problems after the session. Hopefully not.
Am I not doing it now?
That noise. Can you hear us now? Obviously, they cannot. That is your own. Thank you. Hello. Hello.
do we want to maybe switch and make that one on and leave
Turn
this
that
one?
off and just shout. That might be really bad.
That sounds better, says someone.
Oh, that sounds better.
And I have turned it off.
You can hear us?
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. That's even easier.
That is because, would somebody in the back say something?
Can you hear us?
Could you hear that?
Did you hear someone say, can you hear us?
Oh,
Hooray!
a tiny bit at least. Okay, it was faint.
It was faint, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will all project, and if need be, Martina and I can repeat what people are saying.
Thank you for giving your feedback. Okay, where did we leave? Sorry. So,
I
Owen,
guess
yeah.
I was talking about, I think, Laura suggested maybe wildcards, could be stage one and truncation be stage one and wildcard stage two. I think what I was suggesting is that I would break those two out. I think that what we're saying here is we want consistency, then we should establish what that consistency should look like, whether we actually currently do that function or not. Because then if somebody comes to me and says, we really need this wildcard function in our end, I know how that needs to live, rather than thinking something that I thought might work for Tuesday. So, but I would split those two pieces out because I think that's probably different implications for them.
Okay, thank you. But then would it be okay to go with these signs, or would you do any other, or Zach, do you have any opinion from a technical perspective? Owen?
The other thing about truncation, normally, I think my experience is that people sometimes are interested in whether it's left or right truncation, but I don't know if that's intended to us there.
I mean, if we can include that, I would be happy, because we don't want to discuss that several times. It would be great to agree on something. And I thought at least one hand there.
The obvious problem question mark is that things can actually be question marks, so then they have to get down the road and stick at things. I think it's because it's very familiar pattern, it's reasonable, but there is some other details I think there.
What would be a better sign if we don't want to do the question mark? Or is that something that we just give you and say, please decide on one?
Right. So no matter what character you pick, that character is now a special character. When you have text that includes your special character, you need some way to make it unspecial.
Okay.
Whether it's a $sign or a percent or a star or whatever. And so there's some notion of there's something special, but I'm going to escape it to make it not special. We'll have that problem no matter what.
Okay.
So I agree. We just need to say, here are our standard characters. And when you want a title that has a question mark or a $sign, you'll have to escape it.
Or does this, do we think about our normalization where if I'm searching, I expect not to have to enter punctuation.
I normally do all my searches in all lowercase with no punctuation.
Mhm.
And then I would only, in this case, use punctuation intentionally as wildcard. So if that is just the behavior that we present as this is the optimized way to search, does that sound reasonable?
Think it's all about expectations. And
Right.
so, as you said, you know, if you're typing in foo, bar, bat as three separate words and you expect those to match anywhere and maybe you don't have automatic repetition, it's, I think what we're trying to do here is establish expectations. If you type in part of a word, should that essentially be that word star automatically so that it can appear as a fragment rather than only as a full word? Or if you want it to be that the words you type in are effectively automatically right truncated, which it sounds like that's how you're searching.
Oh, no, I was just saying I don't include punctuation. I expect to have to type the full word.
You expect it.
Yeah.
I think if your question is using two characters, like right characters, because those characters are the exact character you come to the rest of the right? Second of all, search behavior is different when you search in Postgres or searching plastic. And so the behavior of what is truncation, what does a wildcard actually do when we determine by underlying technology and how that's implemented in the settings. And I think that needs to be exposed so that you can then expose that to user so that they know that when they put in a question mark, if they're doing that from scale, that is the actual outcome, not what they expect it to be, because the technology is looking at again to remind myself, not that I've done it in the one time. Truncation works differently. You can set truncation parameters in just characters, whatever you do. So again, I think that's a great thing for display for a user. I think the exact way it performs depending on how it's implemented, and that is as far as we can type of documentation. Because then your expectation matches what it's actually doing, not what the thing is going to do, which is most of
I think that's an important point, Kelly. Right. Right now, when you do a search in users, you're actually searching against Postgres. When you do a search in inventory, you're doing the search against Elasticsearch. And I don't want to say that's a problem, but as you're saying, they have the potential to act differently. And so maybe a goal here is to ask, can we cause them to act the same? Or can we present a layer so that to the user they act the same? So we can set expectations about when I type in some string of text, I know what kind of results I'm expected to get back.
And I think that's exactly what we want to do, right? Because I mean, not all apps are using Elasticsearch, so that's different in Folio. And that's why what is important to us is that the user has the same behavior. And because I'm using not only one app, but all apps, and I would like to search in all apps in the same way, because then I can remember what the search looks like. Owen.
So I suspect there are going to be different levels to this, because I think trying to achieve parity of behavior is going to be really difficult, but potentially achieving parity of syntax is possible. So I definitely think like establishing what that syntax should be would be a really good start. Deciding every application should either even an Elasticsearch, or there should be a cross-app Elasticsearch instance that everything goes into to ensure that everything is always completely consistent. It is another thing we could talk about doing, but it's a kind of different level of discussion, I think, to just like, can we actually just like get wildcards to always use the same symbol, right? So, so I guess that I think both are good things to discuss, but we can split those two tasks up and maybe achieve one without the other, or do one first. It seems like a good way of doing it. It's quite a hard discussion to have, because all the time we're going to try to think, is that like
just syntax or is it behavior? And I could see spaces having this next. And that's,
Okay.
but I'm thinking consistency of the syntax will help. And the person who so maybe it's not quite behavior, it's that you've got the first step. Then the second thing is documentation. It is self-defined per app. If you use this user's Postgres for searching, you might have a couple of pointers on Postgres searching and a couple of pointers on Elastic. The differences between them, that's universal across the world. Then maybe in some famous universe where you achieve indexing of everything in singular technology, whatever, you can have a consistency. But if you know that, I mean, most of the people using an artist very easy to develop. Land in the public patent or rolling up portfolio. I'm saying it's just a public roadmap. This is a product used by specialists. You generally train and you are documentation. It's really sweet. So
Yeah, that's definitely true. But really what I would like is that we, as a user, I don't need to read the documentation for each app before I use the app, but that I know, like, for instance, what a question mark does when I'm searching.
yeah, but I think we can get that behavior across things. It's just, I mean, that syntax.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah.
And the
Wording.
person who brought this up was talking about syntax. I just checked, Sarah's not with us, but she said she had to have a sticky note next to her monitor because there were 3 different symbols in 3 different apps she used regularly, and she had to remember which one to use in each. And that is a bad user experience.
So that's terrible.
Please, Owen.
Sorry, Zach made a point earlier, and I think we need to capture this as well if we're defining truncation syntax, which is what is the behavior with, like, that perhaps suggests that we believe the behavior should be that things should not be truncated. I don't know, I'm just wondering what struggling to know whether that's behavior or syntax that we're talking about. But I know the OM apps, and I also know that they don't behave as some of the other apps. So I'm really aware of this as an issue. But in the OM app, if you type in search for it, it's always treated as fragment. And so it's essentially truncated in both directions by default. And we'll find that anywhere in the middle. There are some certain aspects you can then use kind of phrase searching as well and other things, but that's just how it's come out, out the box, if you like. If we're going to say, like, you should use a star for truncation, then maybe also we need to change our behavior so that we don't apply a star unless you type it in, right? So
I would like to have a look at that question because I think that's definitely relevant, what we expect as users, but I saw in a second Maura's hand.
I just thought that I would add a data point, which was that when the user search, if you have to search the user, I know that's not elastic, but that is that's also a substrate search like this. One of the things you can search is a suite of things that are searched in a suite of indexes, which includes first name, last name, and user. So if I have, I set up two users in Folio Snapshot this morning, and they both had the same, three letters in their first and last name, and so you can get all of them. And we have discussed the users, how much fun it is when we have a whole slew of people with the same last name. Especially if it's a short last name, I think you can prove it inside someone else's name. So for instance, if I'm looking for someone, I'm looking for someone whose last name is Lee, spelled L-E-E. That's a substrate search. And I will get every Lee and we get every capacity and every ID. And you just, and at that point, you have to put more unique identifiers right here. Those are also part of the default search because they're all brought together. But it's all within users with the substance.
So I guess I don't want to distract us from the agenda here. I want to just say we have exactly the same issue in ERM as well. And you see with journal titles and stuff where you have exactly that. In ERM, we've also implemented, we have a multi-field search, but you can actually then deselect some of those fields if you want to search. So you can just search for surname or whatever. What I don't, but coming back to the syntax, that would perhaps mean we also have to think about the syntax of like what is a complete token syntax look like, or like there is no way in agreements, and I guess it is clearly used. You can do phrase searching by using inverted commas, but you cannot say just this word. So if you put meaning in inverted commas, that still matches. Well, I don't know what's doing, but this would be true in agreements. It would still match me within a larger string because you just forced an exact match of that string. It just tells the search interpreter not to split that string up any further than the user has typed it in.
So yeah, another thing that I think we're sort of talking around is should the system know when you're trying to do an advanced search?
Yeah.
For example, by default, if you type in food into users, what it actually searches for in the back end is foo star, is to say a left anchored search. So anything starting with FOO and then any number of characters after that. That's what actually happens behind the scenes, and it does that automatically. And you gave the example. I only want people whose last name is food, not people whose last name is food, not people whose last name is foodie. And so, are there again expectations that we can create around things like that? And I don't know to what extent that varies across applications. If you type something in, maybe in inventory, you want only exactly what I typed, but maybe generally users. The assumption that's been made, at least, is when you type something in, what I want is a left anchored version of what I typed. And so, should we be applying those wildcards or those anchors everywhere, or should it be per app? I think again, it gets at expectation, which is again what you're trying to set there. So, the challenge is, are those expectations consistent across applications? And I don't know if they're not. In a way, it makes our job harder, but it also speaks to Terrence's point of. We are expert. The users of this application are experts, and so as long as we can provide expectations and provide documentation, maybe some variation is okay. It would be great to minimize that variation, but we're not necessarily trying to like Google search for inventory users and TLM and this, that, and the other thing. So
I think the PowerPoint starting with the experts, because at a public library, it might be a 14-year-old or like using especially inventory or using any moment. It could be a page, it could be a person first job at level of use. So it does have to be a lowest common denominator sometimes. But that doesn't mean that some form of magic protection or whether it was a filter search or anchor search or is important.
So I know in inventory, we have had discussions around having an advanced search. And I feel like that would solve a lot of these problems for me with inventory, that I would know what to expect with the basic search, and I would probably always use the advanced search. And I feel like that would need have other apps talked about having an advanced search in addition to the sort of default existing search? And would that be something that would be appealing in other places, or is that more of an inventory sort of bespoke specific situation?
We haven't had really a big discussion about the idea of expert searching in PRM, and I think for the most part, it's probably not required. We have talked about it, not particularly with the SIG, so from the team, the development team perspective, we have talked about whether maybe we should consider supporting as identifiers a search screen, like reducing those exactly syntax types. They can type a search screen which has to follow all the elements of that search, rather than having to go through the UI components that we put in front of them. And that could be useful for a couple of reasons. Yeah, I don't think we considered it, well, certainly not what's the point about really stories to, or even pictures to describe that behaviour, but it is something that is on my mind as a possible way of supporting a more flexible search approach where it's needed, alongside what we deliver as, I think, a reasonably good search solution that most people can use most of the time. It definitely doesn't fit all these things into that.
Are you talking about what we call the query search? Is that what you're referring to? Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying we want to do the same thing, but
No, totally what you're saying. I like that idea that it's the next thing, the toughest thing.
yeah,
We want to do design behind it, to be made useful and deliver the explanation and the good of what's actually happening and what is the actual feeling. Because as we transition to portfolio and our just thrown probably our stuff, right? It's the UI plate, and so many people against the no stuff. They can't find stuff, right? And then I made it the executive decision to dumb down the OPAC a little bit, geared towards paper, not towards stuff. Makes sense. Yeah. And I'm doing use cases all the time with that I find pretty quick. And I said, no, I've got a folio and folio the place. So no, you don't want to hear it, but they can't do this or allow. So
yeah. I mean, one of the
inventory is pretty good. I must say I think inventory is quite good for itself as a product. So people can use things like that. Right.
I think one of the interesting things is that I know, like, we interpret the search that the user types in to then generate a back-end search, but then gets interpreted, by whatever layer is then servicing the data. And I know that we can support searches, but we can't expose the UI because we don't have good ways of doing that. I mean, that's not insurmountable, I don't think. And maybe the advanced search groups, maybe there's we have some query builder stuff that we do where you can add components to a search to make it a little bit easier to build up complex searches. We've thought about extending that. The man-find searching, as I talked about it, particularly the query stream kind of typing it out, is definitely a really advanced level because you have to really know what you're doing and all these things that you're doing. If you're doing that day in, day out, it's probably okay. But if you occasionally need to do it, it's hopeless. So, yeah.
But I mean, it's the thing of advanced search. I mean, I think most of them absolutely use that.
No, I typically mistake that.
And their design, so forgetting what they're doing, but their design, from the user perspective, from developing a complex theory, or that's quite very powerful. And I think those attacks can be applied to more complex parts.
That is exactly what I said. And I demonstrated in PC. I said exactly the same thing. They said that component exists already. And I have to say, I was completely unaware that we built something similar but different in the previous already. So I don't know when that became available. There are some limitations. My immediate reaction is there are limitations of the complexity of nesting of adding or turning up body now. But it's I really it's a nice solution. I'd love to see it more widely used.
Yeah, and maybe I mean that's something that we want to pick up in App interaction as well. But what I would like to know is, when we talk about advanced search, we hear now from ERM, but how have discussions in other SIGs gone? Like, did you discuss something like that? No.
The Kira for advanced search.
Okay, I mean, advanced search was on this list as well as the later point. What do we think we should do now? Sorry, there was Julie, Peter, Felix.
Hi.
Hi.
So I know advanced search is different because there is where it's already implemented. And I find it's powerful, but it's cumbersome to be short. We have to be advanced search, then we have a model, and then we have to select all the things to it. What I like queries, but it's really cumbersome as well, because we need to start so long, like an exploratory and blah blah blah. But could we can come up with something like an area so that I know I have 3 important items, and then I would say I for instance dot I don't know height dot CIC instance fiber. Then I can say instance would that have to consider something in that area?
I mean, that,
I can,
yeah.
We have it already in our category side. We are working with all these areas, so typing and number ISP or ISPN, and I can remember it. So I got history of course, but that's something people can remember. And most of them don't have to remember, I don't know, 5 or 10 of those areas, and that would be. So,
that's true. I mean, it's a higher barrier for someone new, but as you say, you have that in your mind quite quickly if you use the system regularly. Opinions on that? Like, would that?
That doesn't only eventually, you want to work across entities. So in agreements where agreements and between life mentioned.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to perform services over both entities.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to find all the licenses from 2020 that have an amendment that is no longer active from 2021 or something like that. Or I want to find all the titles with a holding of a inventory.
Yeah, I can see that as being something I would want to. Kristen?
This sounds like this got to do. Like, maybe we just like standardize the wild cards. I just don't want to lose track of that because that just like when you do that, it's just sort of like, of course, like how annoying is it that, you know, I remember when Sarah was like, I have to keep sticky notes and that's how I keep track of this. Like, why not? Like, you could do that irrespective of whatever else happens. Yes, for the next.
I think that makes sense. I agree. When you figure out how to scope it, and I think maybe a related thing to wildcards. You know, again, right now when you search in users, what you're actually searching for is, you know, who shot when you type in food. And so if we can agree on the wildcards, you know, star and question mark, because we think they're standard in Elasticsearch or standard in certain parts. And if we can maybe agree, when you type in a string, is it always left anchored? Is that just like in users? Does that still get applied automatically?
Can we for that question?
Behaviors like that.
Yeah.
That might allow expectations to be set more consistently.
And
then advanced search is an interesting problem, but also.
But for that last question, can we get immediate feedback before we lose track of that again? Like, would that be something you would say yes to? I see one thumb.
I would not say yes to changing any of the searches as they are in inventory right now, because we've done a fair amount. There's a lot that doesn't work how we want, but there are a few things we've finally gotten to work how we want. And I'd be really loath to make changes that would regress us in any way, because some of our data are normalized.
Sorry, what was the question?
I think it was left anchored, yes or no?
Could we agree that a search in anywhere in any search box is left anchored and truncated, right?
No, I think.
No. Yeah, and that's why I say no.
I think that, so, just coming back to this point about making sure we scope this correctly. I think maybe that needs going to end up being a discussion outside this room to some extent, but I think that like left angling stuff. What I see in the OM, again, like from that perspective, is that sometimes people want to left angle put a lot of time in it. So like it needs to be something they can or can't do. Whether that's done by a checkbox or whether that's done by a standard kind of syntax that they type in, I don't really mind as long as I know how we should approach it.
Decision on question mark and star, everybody else thumbs up.
I think that's what we already did. Question mark and asterisk is go. Yeah.
Down at the bottom of the list is clearly more refined.
Yeah.
You see the discussion, let's move your next one, otherwise we'll have to pass number one.
That's right. Thank you.
You're welcome to join our meetings anytime, but I know but I know it's the middle of the night for you when we meet. So that's another discussion.
And I'm not sure whether we can change that. So spaces handling, and that was what Owen was afraid of, and I'm really sorry for that. We have already some JIRA tickets for those, which are, or one that's in draft, to strip leading, trailing, and double spaces out of data in some elements. And that's for inventory, I think, because it's on instances, holdings, and items. How do we want to handle spaces? In some apps, they are eliminated, and in others, they can exist. What's our common wish here, Julie?
My common wish would be that the way spaces are handled would be consistent between inventory and ordering. And I think that as long as they're consistent, I don't care what the choice is. But there's been, we have staff who search both of those and
Yes.
having to know which way they're doing it and which app is a problem.
Owen.
So when you say consistency between inventory and ordering, then you mean that is it a particular kind of search? It seems to me like if it's, I'm not sure that I necessarily completely understand the extra spaces thing, I have to admit. But if I'm searching for an identification number that happens to have spaces in that are determined by some standard about that identification number, then I want to preserve those as they should be when I do the search. Whereas if I'm searching for title, maybe I have different requirements. So when you say the consistent behavior, you mean in all cases they should always do the same thing?
Well, I'm talking about the spaces here. I mean, the fact that you have to put in an extra space if you want to do the same kind of search in orders to actually see a result is a problem.
We have an example order search and an example inventory search.
I think as I said, we're talking about this, I think that was raised by something pointed out when was last week. Everybody's going to get around something, figure out what the effect. And I don't know much about orders, but they raise this really weird thing is where you grab the order, I think you grab the first order or something, but at some point you're going to link it to a distance. There's a little hyperlink on the left hand side, and you click it, the load pops up. Load pops up and looks like a mini inventory search.
Yes, yes.
That's the problem. It looks like research before, but it doesn't behave the same way for some people. You think it's the same? Okay, yes, probably makes sense.
So what we're asking about is two searches for identity by two different companies.
Yeah, it's sort of the same.
And we raised.
That is one of the things that, that is the problem. There's also the problem where, for some reason, the order record was created with a space at the end of, the title, and that affects searching that order, because it doesn't make me the same way as the.
Anne Marie, you wanted to say something, right? Yeah.
The thing that you did that we put the icon of research an instance is not and a piece of it is a really utility that the inventory search people are creating. And it comes down out of city, but that was on your Spitfire or together, I think there's 20 different runs of those Spitfire. And so if we don't have something to make sure that that is gotten back in sync with the regular and the students of the field was Spitfire and certainly that's what I come yeah, and there's the culture that we
There was, Zach, you wanted to say something, right?
Yeah, so spaces are complicated. I think, Owen, you made a really good point that you might have an order number that is, 1, 2, 3, space 4, 5, 6, space 7, 8, 9, and you want to search for that thing as though it's a single string. But if you type that in other places, you can say, oh, those are 3 separate things. So I'm going to, look for a title that has 1, 2, 3, or a title that has 4, 5, 6, or a title that has 7, 8, 9, and that's where we run into trouble. But maybe we can talk about leading and trailing spaces.
Yes.
Separately than spaces in the middle.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask that.
We might be able to reach agreement on leading and trailing white space,
Yes,
even though white space in the middle is missing.
yes.
That sounds perfect. And we have,
this is for barcodes.
Yes, yes, it drives me crazy. And I can't tell you how many times a staff member comes to me and says, I can't find this. And I go and I look and I say, I know you can't even see it, but you've got to backspace 1. And they're like, what did you do? Nobody's done that in chat.
I think that's what Tim writes in chat as well. Yes. So then I hear agreement on leading and trading spaces we don't want. We can eliminate, but there is a hand.
I think the key to all of these spaces is that the same normalization needs to be applied to both the user query and the data being queries. Or else you want to situation where it becomes completely inaccessible. So
Yes.
be careful about that. If you're stripping spaces to the query, but we're not stripping spaces to the data, that's not going to work.
Thank you for bringing that up because I know I do not want spaces, leading or trailing spaces saved or considered as part of my search either for things like call numbers and barcodes. And these are things that our staff are often copying and pasting, and it's really easy to get an extra space or carriage return in there that you don't see.
I was going to say, I'm very much in favor of that, but I'm also wondering if we don't want to off space again. If we're going off the res, we're going to talk about, fixing data.
Yeah.
As opposed to search data.
I think it,
Already done it once. So we're gonna, keep doing this. I mean,
in a way, it winds up being the same problem. Again, if we go back to how search works in the users app right now, when you search for Glee, you're actually searching for Lee Star. And so even if, like, again, in users, say we accidentally include white space at the end of that stuff, that winds up being okay if we strip that white space when we search. So you're correct that we are wandering a bit, but I think unless someone can present a counterexample to preserve leading and trailing white space when I save my data and when I search for my data.
When you search,
Leading and trailing white space.
I think I've come across an example where it can be useful right now, and I'm not saying this is a good thing to be in a situation where it's good, but by including a space after search allows, because it comes back to what I was saying about not being able to specify a specific string. Sometimes like, you can avoid the problem of, like, you're looking for the end, something that you know will be the end of a word, and by putting a space after it, you kind of force that to then not be the end, to be the end of the word and not be automatically wildcarding for the rest of the stuff.
Searching unite versus united.
Yeah, so like, I'm not suggesting that this is great behavior, we should stick with it.
Well, but
I'm just saying, like, if we was, like, going back to what you were saying, Laura, like, if we change behavior, then we've got to make sure we're doing it in a coordinated way that, where we don't take away workarounds without replacing them with working.
Kristen.
If you take away, if you need consistent ability to use wildcards, and you take away these automated, mysterious places where you use these wildcards, but it seems like you are, then you're not gonna have to search, if you're trying to search for food, you won't have to do food space, so you don't get foosball, right? So, like, when that kind of, then you don't need that.
Yeah, but you also then need, it's obviously a big discussion, but then you need all of the users to know to shove a star on the end of, like, their user search, unless they switch rows they're concerning, or, it's kind of, like, it's just being really careful about it, because sometimes doing the stupid thing is in the user's benefit, because it saves them having to think about doing the same thing, and sometimes it's not, and there's no really simple answer to that.
Right, and a challenge here is that Google works most of the time, right? But it's really hard to find less than 18 million results from search Google. And I think that's part of the struggle that we're having here, is that there's times when, you want a patron who's, a student employee, and this is their first job, to be able to use the system. And we want, a systems librarian with advanced educational training and 40 years of experience, who knows exactly what they want to use the same system and both be happy with the results.
And
that's part of our challenge.
And this brings me back to, in my mind, if we have a good advanced search option,
Yeah,
we're giving each user a place to do what they know how to do.
yeah. Something I wonder is, with a single search box, is there a way that you can indicate, I'm doing something advanced here? Like, if your search starts with a quote, or if your search starts, and maybe that's a horrible idea.
That's part of your answer. There is, when you put in searching,
Right.
You want.
I want this exact thing.
Space,
And maybe,
space,
Right.
morality,
right,
versus straight open searching, which is, that is truncated, like wildfire, you can,
yeah,
script.
right,
At leisure, because that is we want them to do a minimum level of searching at that point, but the best deep search where you're doing formalized with posts, then we want exactly this.
yeah. I wonder actually if quotes would get us a lot of what we are discussing in this white space conversation.
Mhm.
As if the string you're searching for, right, starts and ends with a quote.
Actually, that really works. So, if we already support notes for it, and yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you have, your string is wrapped in quotes, it's
Yeah.
just saying exactly, if it's not wrapped in quotes, it's okay to tokenize.
Well, that's important.
Hey everyone, I have a lot of you. Expert we started it's not even this, but I wanted to make a comment that the advanced search for inventory, development is in progress. Hopefully we go concrete. And we've also tweaked it in the macro for inventory to support price searching results.
What does phrase looking at quotes mean?
Just let me describe.
Exact phrase.
Oh.
So it's but that's not saying you can learn it.
So my big concern with the white spaces is very selfish and practical. And it's barcodes and call numbers, because I think we're running scripts every night to find these and fix them, but we're still, the fact that we can accidentally save a leading or trailing space with a call number not only screws up searching, it screws up our spine labeling. And the fact that if you accidentally introduce a space at the beginning or end of your search, you can't find something, really, really stumps our staff in ways that seem silly. And there are things that should confuse us, and a barcode search is not one of them.
I have noted that we want to eliminate leading and trailing spaces. And if I hear nothing else, I would now go to the next one.
And those are not just spaces, there are space like so space, tab, carriage return,
We call it white space.
white space.
White space,
Yes.
yeah. Then we are, sorry, lowercase versus cap in search. And in app interaction, we already said in cases where a user wants to find everything from a given date until today. Is that right? No, that's then just ignore this text and what I just said. Lowercase versus cap search. Sometimes, obviously, searches, you need to do an exact search. So you need to decide whether you want to have lowercase or cap. And what I understand, I think that's a use case from Sarah again, is that this should be avoided. Like when I search for lowercase, I want to find the cap as well and the other way around. Can we find agreement there? What do you think?
Can I rephrase?
Yeah,
So
thank
I make
you.
sure
That would be great.
that I'm hearing what I think. I'm sorry?
I beg your pardon.
Yes. So the question is there any place in Folio where we need case sensitive searching, or can we agree that all our searches should be case insensitive?
Let's see, with the exception of in the form of phrase search, that would be one time or one.
Yeah. Good. And thanks for rephrasing.
Yeah. Okay. But does that mean, if I do a phrase search in my default, which is all lowercase, no punctuation, and there actually is capitalization in the data, I'm not going to retrieve what I'm looking for? Because I expect all my searching to be case insensitive. I expect not to have to use my shift keys.
Even if you want to do an exact phrase.
Yes, and actually an example in inventory, we have two different call number searches. One is normalized, one is not. Both are case insensitive. So even there where we're being very, very picky and literal, we said you don't have to get the case right.
So I think that you would probably want to do some sensitive across the board, because I think also in cataloging, the way people capitalize a transcription from the title page is not going to be consistent. Cataloging rules were like you had to do sentence capitalization, and then that became optional, or you might be getting data from a vendor where they don't do sentence capitalization in the initial record. And so I think that would result in people missing the record that they're expecting from.
We have a thumbs up from Laura. One more.
I'm a +100 for case intention, and I have a really good story about a money system vendor that I have a fight with them talking as an acquisitions systems person for a book vendor. He told me that capital S, capital T, and lowercase u, lowercase s, lowercase t could potentially be two different currencies. And I said, if that's the case, you are going to screw every United States library that this is your system for there has to be capital USD, lowercase USD, all in US dollar. That is the code. It doesn't matter if it's capital or lower. And I did not want to happen.
And that's why you're now developing a better
Yeah.
system.
That's, when we lower the fees, we don't allow other fees, and we don't allow white species. So we can use the marks.
Thank you. So then we are set there. That's perfect. We have half an hour left, which is great. And we are nearly at the end of the list. And this one is coming from metadata management. I'm not sure. Normalization is a huge, I mean, it's everything. So then maybe we can skip that one. Sorry.
Good point about the modals not necessarily being the same as the search in the app. I don't know that we have that on our list, but that is something that you know, I really was learning to live with, but there's no reason why that can also be part of our search normalization.
Yeah, I think if you have a search, you strip down search in another part of the app, but it looks like it's something that keep over someone. If they're not going to use a freaking out, they on mark on, which is exactly what happened in my case. They eventually had to go, they couldn't use standing field search in the world, but it didn't kind of work. And then they went down, pretty big drop down, split the HRD, and they, I didn't have it. What's the people? The RSI probably have to process today. So I just think it should be consistent, right? I mean, that's, I don't think it's that hard to think it's fast. But worry what after that will no. Yeah, no, I think it's more. I think it's larger than you saying, that's what's I think consistency between things like that is something to keep an eye out for when you create a list of those things. But I think maybe they're not as important in terms of, you don't think all these big features like advanced search, different types of things, list search, you think, part of the thing on the side, you don't think about it. You see it, you list it, and then probably not a big job to fix that can be done in conjunction with someone else.
So I mean, I totally agree about the consistency being desired there. The reason, or one of the reasons we get inconsistency is that there's double work for the development team. When they make a change to search, it has to be done in the main app and in every other place. Any other search plugin or you can do one, right? But it means that double work has to happen. From my perspective, as a product owner, there's like part of it is just remembering to make sure that when you do that change to search, you write the story to change it to the other place as well. And that, human error leads to that sometimes not happen. I think that the other thing is that I don't know if there's a way around it. But technically, it bugs the hell out of me that we write search twice every time.
Right. We have UI users, the application, and we have UI plug and find users, which is what you do when you're in checkout and you want to search by name instead of by or something. Yeah. And it's the same thing. We have UI orders and we have plug and find order, plug and finder space.
It's not this one. Yes, it's harder. That for the back to the architect or whatever for yes, and it's your say whatever and make it consistent. Yeah, kind of more. Yeah. And the harder so it's probably important when everybody's running big massive vertical slice, you've got a big day or they don't think it's a little day. Absolutely.
I think that general problem of either keeping the application and the plug-in find unit thing in sync or figuring out how to have them use the same code base is an important but separate conversation.
Then we would have one last on the prepared list. I'm just reading that myself, sorry. I could read it aloud. A decision on which filters and folio should have the type ahead style of contains versus starts with. For example, in the orders app, order line filters, fund code seems to operate with contains, while expense class seem to operate with starts with. And that's, I mean, in the same functional area even.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I think some of this consistency, it also gets back to that question around the foundation too. So I know like in receiving, you go to search for an order number, you bring it up and receive something, and you have some orders that you've migrated from an older system that are really, really long, and then you have newer ones that are actually shorter, and that's our case. And you put in a shorter one, it will also bring up the long one too, and that is just, I think if we get that consistency with truncation and how that works, that will take care of this problem too.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to use those wildcards to how to do it container searches. That's what you really have to.
Except this is for the filters specifically, is it not?
Yeah,
With the type
Okay.
ahead.
so just looking, the reason that they behave differently is one is a single select and the other is a multi-select filter. And those components are behaving differently. Now, I'm not defending it, but that seems to be the reason why there's two different behaviors. But this is about the behavior of a filtered list when, and this doesn't just apply to search filters, it would apply to anywhere those components are used in any form from other places to fill out data. So I don't think it's a search problem per se.
So, yeah, you have correctly articulated exactly what's happening there. We have some components, some reusable components in terms of how we can build the form for this. And one is left anchored and one is not. Is there consensus for how those should function? Should they all be left anchored or should they all be contained?
I think we need to know all the different contexts in which we might encounter them, because my thought with filtering is contains, but if it's a form that I'm filling out, I might have very different expectations. So
I can say right now, I mean, if we're talking this going into drop down menus where you're wanting to, I mean, are you talking about the drop down menus where you're selecting
Yes.
the
Yeah.
expense code?
Yes.
Then we're gonna want contain. I'm gonna say that right now, because I don't want to go through the full list of everything that starts with law to get the subcategory that's explained in the last 3 characters.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Sorry, so to clarify, that this is different from having a single select drop down and a multi that we want to have.
That, yeah,
And something the outside of the one starts with, the other one is contained. Really summarize that.
that's my understanding. Whether I've got quite the component, there might be some other components that are serious like about it together. But this one is particularly, one is a serious like one is multi like.
And this, you have no secret for everything, right?
Yeah, I think that's
That's not around it. No, I understand your issue.
Right, well, what I'm saying is right now, where I'm encountering it, it's treated as contains, and I like that.
Yeah, you have.
yeah.
But so the thing is, we're not talking about searching, 10 million instance records
No.
submitting a search here, right? We effectively have a controlled vocabulary, we're
Yes.
searching for a couple thousand things,
Yes.
and it's all happening in July. So we just need to make sure, I think, that the components all behave consistently. And I think what I'm hearing is that folks agree that it should all be contained.
Maura
has
first
a-
and then Owen. Yeah.
I was gonna say that, it sounds as though, he said, I think this area, but I mean, I haven't really considered, a lot of the parts of the contained, as far as, the user path. And so, I wonder if we should consider making this a topic for a later meeting where we can all sort of do a little bit more homework with it. And see if there's anything, which things, anything that we need to worry about, just because, we can all say here, we all love containers, I mean, I get containers, I'm fine with containers, but, I can't say for certain that that is, that there's not a use case somewhere, that's not going to be applied. And so, I'm thinking that this might be a thing that we just have, even if we revisit, like, where we have a sit committee and Martina says, does everybody really want to stick with the change and everybody needs to come up? And then you're done.
Yeah, or I send around like some kind of poll. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have someone in Slack. Kimberly, are you able to unmute and talk?
I've unmuted. Can you all hear me?
You cannot.
We cannot hear you, maybe.
You got sound going on there.
It's not picking up.
Mm.
Yeah, put it on the owl and see if that works.
Can you try again?
Yes, I'm talking now. Can you hear me?
Yay! Hello.
I was just going to say this example that Martina put in here with contains versus start. This is actually a new issue that we're running into at our library, specifically in orders. I think that one of the things that I run across is like in the finance app, there are things like ledger groups, but those are not in the filter options. And so having a starts with on the fund code would then, make it so that I could group those funds together and find things that are all within that ledger group without building a separate filter for ledger group, if that makes sense.
So are we hearing correctly that you have a use case for preferring starts with?
Yes.
Got it.
The same function that's happening in expense class, because I can add, if you look at the setup in Folio under expense class, you can add more than one expense class to filter with at the same time. Like it's almost like a tags list rather than a certain specific one and only sort of thing. That's what I've noticed in the filter options for the orders app.
Yeah, that's the multi-select that I have designed.
And we had a thumbs up from you, Maura, or was it? Yeah.
No, this is, for me, this is sort of reinforcing my point.
Yeah.
Which is that we have to,
We have to
visit it.
Yeah.
And make certain that we have all of the places, because otherwise, we could all spoke about this right here and say yes.
No, we don't want to do that. That's true. I don't know. Did you want to say something and then Owen? Or you? Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm wondering if we know that the capability of this app and what extent that might solve some of these edge cases and searching. But I know when I'm in Sierra, if I have some weird search functionality that I can't get out of normal search, I can go to create I can use regular expression and get pretty much anything I might ever need.
I feel like that's the same as saying, well, we can get at it by searching in the LDP using SQL. I mean, yeah, there are some workarounds, but those aren't going to be accessible workarounds for most of our users.
Depends on how often you use it.
I wanted to ask you said that, I think I heard you say that there was a place where you can use the expense pass and it does contain.
Well, this is why I was asking, I'm thinking about filling out an order record, a POL, and you're going in and you're putting in the fund, and there's a drop down, you choose expense class, and this is why I was asking, are we talking about paying?
How many expense passes can an order have?
I don't know.
I think that right.
Okay.
And me, sorry.
I think each fund can have one, but you can have multiple funds.
And
So it's a single expense class per fund, but you can have multiple funds, so a POL can have multiple expense classes, but it rolls from a number of funds.
Probably, I didn't have a look, but probably that means that in the form you're using, the same data is being exposed by a single snake, which does contains, whereas in search, because you want to search multiple expense classes at once, if there's a multi-select, adding with the plus interface that Kimberly mentioned, and that goes not.
And I think we need to distinguish, where are we doing this filtering where you're adding new data, or are you doing it searching where you're trying to locate existing records?
The component doesn't know.
Right. Yes, you're right. The component doesn't know which one.
Doesn't know where it is. It's just doing its job.
Again, what I'm hearing, and to me, this is the same problem that we identified earlier, which is sometimes you just want to type something in Google style and have it find all the things that are related. You can't remember if your tag is computer science or computers and arts and science, or so you type in science because you know it's in there somewhere, and then it finds the right thing. Versus I know that I'm trying to look for the collection of funds that all start with CAS, and so I want that one thing. So we have both use cases, and we're trying to drive them through a single UI, and that's challenging. So we try to figure out other maybe are there some shortcuts that we can take. We talked about using quoting phrases earlier as sort of a shortcut, so that if you're typing in a phrase without quotes, it gets tokenized and does wildcards. But if you type with the quotes, it's like, all right, hang on, I'm doing something special. And maybe we need to think about the same kinds of things with these other formulations as well, so that we can accommodate both needs, because we're finding we have multiple needs.
Bless you. Yeah.
I was just gonna give that another use case outside of words, that for locations, for example, you can filter on the 500 or 500 page that we use, and I'd rather do that than search through 150 locations. And that has to be contained, right? To be able to just start typing in code and have it pop right up, and that's cheaper. So, and it's also cheaper data entry that you described to fill it out of the template.
So maybe the solution is mostly like that, right? Maybe not, it's not, but actually capturing in detail the exact use case. That's a great, that's a bit more that you just screenshot of data or something, so you can, and you figure out, is it an issue with that particular part of the functionality that we have? Is it a decision that you made across the entire, like, because I think crossing boundaries, maybe sometimes some of the things we look about, not specific that. Maybe that needs a little bit of rework, a little bit more for UX, and actually then comes to the issue rather than, hey, we're stripping out spaces and we kind of going on the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think gathering a few more concrete examples we can actually replicate that environment.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And I mean, we have some comments in chat here. I have them open so we can read them.
Starting with, I missed it, but with Lou is saying, I use has, i.e. contains, and starts with, consider often, and hope Folio can include them without having to use the workaround. And then I added in response to that, I believe those are options in the inventory advanced search that's being developed, and Christine is nodding. So Lou, you're going to be able to do that. Hi, Lou. And Kimberly, I believe in response to the contains versus starts with, is saying things like fund codes and expense classes have controlled language in the settings. And Kimberly, let us know if you want us to.
I think my comment about that was just listening to you guys talk about like the expectation that it's going to be a Google search, that the tag has something in it, kind of like it contains the word science in it somewhere. But what we're looking at here in just the orders app, for example, is a filter that's working in two different ways with controlled language for both items. So I think that that's where it's causing some frustration or confusion, is that I can do some things with one type of controlled language, but not another, right?
Yes.
And in fact, as we've also found out, even a single controlled language can behave differently in different contexts, because we're being exposed in a single select or a multi-select in different contexts. So just confirm that with the order line and the other groups. a fund, you then have to drop down to space capital on that fund. That's a single select and works with a code for every single show. So I mean, I think having different behaviours on those is very confusing, but really a single penny won't go down to balance. So
Right.
And I think we all need to like, really, we need to, you know, figure out how we want to do what we expect to get. Really, and, you know, kind of find out what we're thinking before we can really.
Agreed, definitely.
We do have one more comment in chat, and I'm sorry, I don't know what the full name of this person is. It'd be nice if searching in orders didn't require punctuations such as commas. And I think I misunderstood because I said I don't think anyone is suggesting we require punctuation other than quotation marks for phrase searching, but it sounds like their orders does require some punctuation, and if so, I'd really like to hear about that. So that doesn't seem right to me. Is the person who made that comment in chat able to unmute or type into chat and I can read it?
Yeah, I was trying to type it into chat. I'm sorry. Yeah, we've always had to add the commas, and it's the same thing as having an extra space in before the colon, and it gets really sticky about that.
Is this for something like a title search?
Yes.
So it's very literal?
Yes.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
It's annoying. You can get around it. You can figure out like backing up your space. But if you don't know that there's a comma there, it can take you a little while to get it fixed.
I can imagine our data are always completely accurate, Owen.
Can we just try and be clear about when this occurs? Because we've already had a confusion about when we talk about order search. When is it exactly, what kind of search are you doing that causes this problem? Where are you in the interface and what search are you doing that causes this problem?
I didn't quite follow that, Owen. I'm sorry.
Where are you in orders and what type of search are you doing when you encounter this?
Title search in orders.
In orders.
When you're adding a title into an order line, or when you're trying to find an order line by title.
When I am trying to find one.
So in the order app, you click in the left-hand panel order lines, you use a keyword search, and that fails if you don't include the correct punctuation.
Yes.
There's no title search.
Title package.
Okay. Is that? If we can, I'm not asking for it now, but if we can gather that as an example,
Yes.
because I can't replicate that immediately here.
Yeah, let's go.
I replicated it.
Oh.
And I confess, I never search for any titles in orders. I search in inventory and then I find the order from inventory.
And
But
this is
yes.
possibly why you do that. Boy.
I just thought of another example in possible, I'm misunderstanding happened with it. A case where punctuation is needed for searching in call number, specifically, Colorado State ID.
Call numbers are already accounted for because we have the normalized call number and there's the I-readable call number. And that's why we have that I-readable call number, because it is literal.
Okay. Including punctuation.
Including punctuation, but not including case, but including punctuation and spacing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not the only classification system that had requirements like that. So that is taken care of, and that did not.
Okay. I found out. That's brilliant. And I mean, I will listen to the recording, write minutes, and note all the use cases. Trying to. But I'm very happy. I mean, we have 5 minutes to go, but I'm not sure whether we want to pick that up.
No, that's
yeah.
a small thing.
We have a small other thing on search, but we will do that in another app interaction call. I have noted a lot of decisions. I'm very happy. I hope you are too. I'm yet now not quite sure. Is it sufficient that we agree on it? Yes.
I think the next step, I think we should agree on it. But the next step is actually then persuading everybody else with what we agreed on with implementing. And so that then you then bring this to the POs or to the SIGs and say this is what's happening. You know, and that by no means guarantees it will happen, but you've got to find ways of now pushing that.
Yes.
We need to get stories for this.
Yeah, get it into Jira. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, one of the ways that is done sometimes is somebody writes a story and says to the POs, please replicate this story for modules. I would definitely recommend talking to the PO group as a starting point, but that might be a way of making sure they don't have an excuse not to include that story.
Sounds good. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you all. Thank you, and thank you virtually.